All right, we're live. I'm here again with Mr. Mohammed Hassan Dable, and I'm gonna ask you a few questions about multipolarism. This week we will concentrate on multipolarism as well. Next week we'll debate it a little bit more. So I'll start with the first question that's on my mind. Is the current world order a unipolar, a multipolar, or a bipolar international system?
A very good question, and thank you for having me again, Rabi Abdul Samad. Let's first of all, I think, welcome our viewers to this new channel, Everyday Politics. To get into answering the question, the current international system is a highly contested one. Some people, or international relation experts and academics, argue that it is, or even some world leaders argue that it is a multipolarity political or international order, while others contest and say that no, it is not a multipolarity. It's still comfortably a unipolar system where America, the United States of America, is actually leading. But this is actually subject to kind of like debate. Everyone could be right in their own respects, but we can say that everyone has some points from both camps. But it looks like, from my take, it looks like the world is now heading to a multipolar system. We have, at the moment, 3 centers. We have Washington, Beijing, and Moscow. I'm saying that because after the end of the Cold War, that was in 1991, when the Soviet Union actually collapsed as a
1989 to 1992. Yeah.
I'm saying like, yeah, 1991 was when actually it has come to its demise.
Yeah.
From that time to the very recent time, I'm talking about 2014. And there's a reason why I am using 2014 as a turning point. It's when Russia asserted its authority in its near neighborhood, where is like, I mean, closer countries that are very close to Russia, and some countries that are also of strategic importance to Russia, that is Georgia and Ukraine. In Georgia, it was the beginning, like when Putin was trying to assert his authority and trying to make sure that America doesn't encroach into its sphere of special interest or its zone of special interest, which could be referred to as, during the Cold War, maybe sphere of influence. But in the current time, even Russians themselves consider Georgia and Ukraine as Russia's special zone of interest. So in 2014, also, it is when Russia began to challenge the United States in Syria. So the United States actually felt the hit because Russia was trying to cut. Oh.
I just wanted to ask you a simple question. You mentioned, so you're mentioning it's regarding military, and it's because of the military establishment of Russia building bases in Syria and other areas. So if it's based on that, you're saying the hegemon, which is the United States, is losing its power because it's sharing the responsibility to kind of put military around the world or ensure security or for other purposes to kind of establish powers overseas. And now you're saying China, Russia doing this in a part. but China hasn't done that so far. So China's kind of leading in economy. If it's multipolarism based on economy, not military, it's different unless it's resources. And if it's that wise, then shouldn't the EU be mentioned?
I think China is the one to watch for. It's not Russia, but actually China is the one to watch for at the moment in the current kind of like world distribution of power. China is militarily building its south. It's becoming more assertive in the Southeast China Sea. You know, I mean, it's kind of like telling the United States to back off. We know what happened. China is actually now more assertive, and the thing is, and even in the United the Security Council has become a place for like more confrontation rather than collaboration. So they have influence in their seats as permanent members, permanent P5. They sometimes have frustrated America. China and Russia were voting
veto, like kind of
to win, and this actually is showing that now. Although America has tried to, when it was comfortably the only superpower, I'm saying this, it is still superpower, but there are challenges now. You know, trying to upset the current order, and this is actually by no means. I mean, China is like very clever. It's actually building its economy. It's building its military. It's building its you know, kind of like strategies. It's actually America's major concern at the moment, because even America is treating China as quite, you know, like want to, is it contain, or America is a bit concerned because China is trying to be, it's already building up its military technology also. It's catch up, you know, of the current information technology and how things are moving, and you know, the
cyber world.
The G5, you know what I mean? It's actually its network system. It's actually putting America a bit on the hit at the moment. For two reasons, America is concerned. One, because it doesn't believe that China's they cannot predict, you know, China's moves, and also they cannot see clarity in China's you know, like ambitions. So it is actually, we could say that it's actually the challenge. It has the population, it has economy, it has military power, although it cannot match America. But then it is one to actually watch. It's one to watch. And
is it possible because China's more trying to assert its power within its region? So now America is kind of losing control of the area, especially after North Korea threatened America in a way, and Trump's doctrine of trying to pull out a little bit from Southeast Asia. Is that why you say that the multipolarism is taking place? So there is kind of a military pullout of America, and there is military pullout of America from around the world, like, for example, where Russia came into Syria and other places. And that's what's allowing the multipolar system. Is it mainly the conflict, or is it really related to resources, and is it really related to economy as well?
There are a lot of things, you know, like America has enjoyed a period of almost, we could say, like maybe 27, 28 years of unchallenged authority in the global stage. You know, every country you look at, there is American involvement and activities going on. You know, the Iraqi war, the Afghani war, the war on terrorism, all of these wars obviously has led to America spreading itself and actually, you know, getting involved in wars that were very hard to manage after they were done. Quick to destroy and stabilize Iraq, quick to destroy and stabilize Afghanistan, but the war hasn't permanently ended. Still, there is, you know, like what's going on in Iraq is sectarianism, where Iran has got more influence in Iraq than America. So it is actually, there are many centers. Actually, the major three centers are Washington, Beijing, and Moscow. Having said that, Britain has got now a role to act as a great power, because it's already a great power, but I think exiting the EU is going to present the UK with a role to play. So it is a veto power, where it's a military, won't be comparing it to America, but it's also among the, you know, military powers. It has influence because it has been the imperial power that has colonized many colonies in the 5 continents. It still could use its old networks to kind of like reposition itself in the struggle for power, for, I mean, great power. So like Germany itself is another center. So economic power, a lot of influence or political clout within the EU. Actually, the leader in the EU is now technically and officially Germany. So an old power, an old imperial. But when it comes to the current world, I think it's where now the American unchecked, you know, or free check in whatever it could have is now being challenged. So Putin and the Chinese president, they were all kind of like asserting themselves and calling for even India is saying like it's a multipolar world. It's not more a bipolar or, you know, unipolar. It was unipolar for about nearly 30 years now, but after 2014, things are changing. So EU itself, if they reassert themselves, if they reposition themselves, could be a power. It could be an economic, political, even military, you know what I mean? So because the American support for them militarily has shifted during the time of Obama, because Obama pivoted to Southeast Asia to check and that China is contained, and also to check that India is also contained, because these two countries, they have got a big population. And one of the things that can actually make a country to be very influential is population, strong economy, and strong military. So they are actually in the top league in terms of technology, in terms of communication and information technology. I said they are actually now going to be, I mean, aiming for like, and they have been challenging the current or political order, whereby we've got 5 countries with veto powers. So India was kind of like challenging that, and it's actually seeking to be a power with a veto.
A permanent member.
Yeah, a permanent member. Yeah. So every country wants to kind of like go for that. So it's actually, we are in a time when, because of the, you know, economic crash or the 2008 credit crunch, when the economy of most countries has declined, again, you know, this COVID-19 and its effect on the economy is going to have a toll on every country's resource in terms of going to realize that ambition to be either a superpower or, you know, like a peer. Like America wants to be, I mean, Russia is underperforming when it comes to all those. However, it's still Putin is calling for. But he has to do more. It's not just calling for, like equal power. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be. If he has to be actually taken seriously, he has to be coming up with, new technology or new arms that are new to the current order, or something that's going to put him in the head. This multipolarity is even becoming more real day after day. It is, because we saw what happened in Syria, where I could understand Obama's plans, because he was working on kind of like committing Iran to kind of like stop or discontinue his ambition to acquire nuclear weapons. And he needed Russia to work. He needed to work with Russia to influence Iran, not to go for arming itself with nuclear. So Iran could, US could not do that on its own. It relied on the EU, and also it wanted the support of Russia to achieve that, and they both contributed more to that goal. So the EU was an instrumental power in negotiating with Iran, and the Russia was also using asserting its influence on Iran to make sure that they back down and avoid the world into another bloody conflict. But everything has been disrupted. Trump came into power, and he kind of like upset whatever that has been set up to make the world more stable. So in the meantime, it looks like we are in the early days of a multipolar world system. The days of glory that the US enjoyed are kind of like not sustainable anymore. It looks like they are now.
We will get to the part for Iran in another podcast or another video, and we'll also talk about other powers. But it's a good point you said about the EU. They kind of use soft power much more than tough power. So they try to, as much as they can, influence through diplomatic channels instead of enforcing themselves on other countries, which has seemed to work sometimes and not be very effective other times, such as everything but arms trade deal. But that brings me to the next point. So you said about the world is kind of becoming unstable now. This is the time of golden time before it goes all south, or something like that. But if it does, what do you think is the most stable system, which you can see more certainty in it? Would it be a bipolar system, multipolar, or hegemon?
I think the most stable system is where there is balance of power. The power is balanced. That is when, like, for example, a bipolar world system is actually the most stable out of all bipolar. The reason being because the power is balanced. So both sides, or both collections of antagonist groups, they will make sure that they can check each other. So that will actually make the world stable. If it is a multipolar, it is the least stable system of world order. It has happened during the First World War. The world was multipolar. The world system, international system that was in existence was multipolar, where you have great powers like European, mainly Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Britain, and they all were, going for competing with each other. And competition is actually very intense during multipolar. So in a multipolar world order, the stability is actually unpredictable, because everyone, you know what I mean, when everyone is trying to be the major power. You know, unipolar, yes, we had American preeminence and dominance, which had positives and negatives, because there was no check and balance in the international power distribution, and a peer competitor. America had all the responsibility, and I mean, for example, to do whatever it thought was advancing its interests. So, for example, it was going for unilateral decisions. It actually undermined the UN, the United Nations. So it didn't actually want to go through the multilateral interdependence and all of that. So because it didn't see that was, when it sees that it was not actually to its favor, it actually went unilaterally. But when America saw that going through the UN will be good for its own interest, then it did follow that. So there's a number of times when unipolar actually, had some good or bad things. Like, for example, weaker states and, mostly African states or even some Middle Eastern states, there's when they actually cease to exist as viable states. It's because America then saw in its own interest that the regime change was necessary to advance democratization, for example, like in Iraq. So that was purely a regime change war, although it was actually used as, like weapons of mass destructions and linked to terrorism was used as a pretext. But later on, it was found that the weapons of mass destructions were not there, even though there was a discovery of nuclear heads, warheads, that were found by the, inspectors. But then that was something that could have been destroyed through following the UN. But America actually didn't see that was actually, there was a chance. So that's why they did a unilateral action to and every time America
I think it was a United Nations accepted deal when they went in 1992. I'm not sure about when they went into Iraq.
Was the UN, because Iraq occupied a sovereign state. It occupied Kuwait.
Yeah.
And then it has to be liberated, and that was a unanimous. The United Nations Security Council actually agreed on the. But then when it came to the 2003, it was purely based on it is arrogance, and that is a feature and characteristics of a unipolar, because no one can actually stop them or stop it. It will do whatever it deems, in agreement with its own interests. So there will be no moralities or ethics or anything. It is, I have the power and I will do it the way I want it. So
okay, but do you think in a multipolar world where not there isn't one governing body which would be able to say these are the rules, don't make wars with each other, such as what was the role of the United States for quite a while. So if there is no such governing body, and do you think that each one of these groups would be doing the salami tactics of kind of attacking nations nearby and trying to grow again?
It's a high risk now. Like if every of these powers, every one of them wants to kind of like extend its influence, not diplomatically alone, but also militarily, which at the moment, because it's actually coming in the beginning. We are in the beginning of that stage. and we are in we really go into a multipolar international system, the risk of having another world war is very high, because remember, the First World War and the Second World War took place when we had multipolar international system, and this has been proven by research, and it is quietly, it's actually been studied, and this is what the results are. The world is more riskier in a time of a multipolar political system.
I think what you're referring to is the Thucydides Trap. I've wrote about it in a document on ResearchGate. I'll try to put the link down below. But yeah, it's because once a nation's economic power grows too much, it challenges the other nation. At that time, Germany was trying to challenge Britain, and that caused the Thucydides Trap, and they fell into war with each other. But there has been few occasions where the Thucydides Trap didn't happen. Again, in the EU, when Britain was kind of a superpower by itself, France started growing, Germany started growing, Japan started growing, and they surpassed each other without actually triggering the Thucydides Trap. I think the secret solution for it is trade, and that's why what we're facing the biggest problem in the multipolar world. In this multipolar world now, we're having kind of trade wars and tariff wars and things like this, and I think these will affect our world a little negatively.
I quite agree with you. During the First and Second World War, the superpower then was the UK. Britain was the superpower. It had the most advanced naval system. But when Germany actually has made its intention public, and they said they want to be the best navy in the world, then that actually triggered concern in Britain, where Britain has to actually summon the diplomatic representative for Germany then, and actually ask them not to build naval system, because they saw that actually was a threat. Britain saw that as a threat. And then what happened was immediately was alliance building and armament and arms raising, because Germany had the manpower, almost 2 million military personnel. They built their military, so that was a threat, and Britain alone could not actually challenge Germany, because Germany's growth was getting so fast and was overtaking almost. So Britain was very strong in its naval capability and could deploy, military in a very short time, far, everywhere in the world. And because when Germany actually have declared that they want to be the best navy, then that is a direct challenge to the only power.
The bipolar, I think it was, because yes. France and Germany was
and this is actually
and Britain.
And this is actually that theory of balance of power. Balance of power is actually what triggers, and it's actually a realist school of thought. One of the school of thoughts of the international relations is realism, and realism actually posits that when not a friend but an enemy state is trying to build its military, the only way to do is do more build up of your capability and also acquire more alliances. Because if 2 million people were already mobilized by Germany, and Britain was like no way near that number, it was in the hundreds of thousands, but not a million even, then the concern is that, okay, go to Russia, go to France, bring them together, build that alliance to counter or to challenge Germany. So this is the balance of power. That is likely to happen in a multipolar world, because when you don't have an outright power that claims superiority in all the key things like in influence, in political, economy, and military and cultural influence, then you will see this race is going to lead to arms race. It is going to lead to, before war happens, it is going to lead to arms race and also building of alliances. So to counter this growing antagonistic power, because you don't wait for your enemies to take on you, so you have to actually either preempt it or challenge it, or sometimes stop their advancement. If for example a power builds alliances, the other one will also try to build alliances, and you will have two centers like the bipolarity. For example, during the Cold War, we had the Soviet Union, which was the Warsaw Bloc, and you had NATO. So these two actually were balancing each other very well. And that was very stable because there were wars happening, but there were proxies. But in a multipolarity, it could actually be like great powers confronting each other. The risk again is, for example, power transition. Here is where it happened in Britain. Was the superpower when the World War started, but the power actually was peacefully transferred to America, to the other side of the Atlantic. So now US became the superpower after the end of the war. Britain lost that privilege of being the superpower.
Yeah, without triggering the Thucydides Trap.
Yeah, it has dropped to the great power position. So you've got the power pyramid. You have the superpower on the top, or superpowers on the top of the pyramid. Then below them is the great powers, and then below the great powers are the middle powers, and then below the middle powers are the middle countries, and then small states. So Britain technically, because then you could be saying that, you could say like, because the superpower was transferred within the same group of states that also share the same values. But if it was to come from another different culture or different value perspective, there could have been bloody war. So if China was to try to overtake the United States of America, it won't look like it's going to be a peaceful one. It will be one which is going to lead to loss of many lives, one which is going to lead to, even.
What do you think, through war, or what do you think?
Through war, definitely. There's no one. Look, all these powers are psychologically trying to play the game, power game. So there will be no country that's going to surrender easily like that.
I disagree on this point. This is an end remark, but I disagree on this point because even Xi Jinping have said in the past that he does not wish to confront the United States on any level of war, and he does not wish to trigger the Thucydides Trap. It's the same thing that Obama said. Trump did not say that so far, but and he did kind of punish the trade, and he provoked war in sometimes. But I think if there is enough smart people on both sides, and it stays within the trade war levels, I hope there shouldn't be any wars or anything like this. And just sorry, before you make your final point, just to say, you mentioned World War II. I strongly advise Noam Chomsky, The Masters of Our World. I think, Who Rules the World? I really advise people to read this book. It's really educational, and it will help you understand who rules the world, literally. Sorry, your final point now, so we can end this.
Yeah, my point is yes. they, political heads, leaders of bigger powers, they actually say things, but their action might not be. And this is a game. This the game theory is in place. So no one is going to say like, obviously, this is what I want to do, or won't do, or this is, it's everyone is trying to be achieving their goals secretly. And when it comes to the public known things, what they say does not really match what actually is, secretly planned, or strategies that are, kept in the reality, are worked on. So these are two things. Whatever world leaders or whatever they make public does not necessarily mean that they mean it. It is a world where, you kind of like diplomatically show or friendship, but sometimes you can tell there's some of the, like China and Russia, for example, they are upset with the current status quo. And they haven't got yet the power to challenge. They're not ready yet. But you never know what is being planned. Putin several times says, like, okay, we need to have equal share of authority with great powers. He tries to kind of like get America's approval. China doesn't seem to be that desperate, but Putin has many times indicated that he would like to be given a role in the current political order and in the current international order. But it's not easy to get that. It's not that straight away to be, a competitor will not easily give you, the role you're looking for. If that's going to kind of like lead it to its disadvantage, you know what I mean? You have to come up with, or he has to come up with something concrete. Not necessarily military, but something concrete that will make him like to be a serious challenge. At the moment, not that much. China is more serious in its ambition than. But if they were to form, which is very hard at the moment in the present time, an alliance or something, maybe. But still, America is the world preeminent power. Even though it is declining, there could be some internal factors within America that could lead, or some external factors with its involvement in a lot of wars. That especially in the Middle East, maybe the war on terror, which is, never, it's never ending kind of like conflict, because it is not actually one which you can fight it with military. It's actually one which needs more ideological and, more kind of like understanding, cultural understanding.
Okay, that's awesome. I hope we get to talk about this as well next week. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime.